Well, let's dive into your SEC projections here, starting with the SEC East. And I thought it might be a little fun to work our way from the bottom, go up. And no surprise here, number 7 in the SEC East, according to Pick 6 previews, the Vanderbilt Commodores. What do you see in store for the debut season of the Clark Lee era?
Yeah, so obviously coming off of a tough season, it was their first winless team in school history. But really, the bigger news has been off the field. It's been hiring Clark Lee, an alumni coming back to his alma mater there after leading successful defenses at Notre Dame with a tough 4-2-5 scheme and a really strong front seven. Really defined them last year at Notre Dame in the last few years. So bringing in a proven defensive mind there, an alumni that cares about the program, loves the program. But also the off-the-field news was that they secured that big financial commitment from the school, and that's something that Vanderbilt's dealt with. It's been a tug of war, a push and pull of the academic side of the college and then the athletics. And so to finally get some money going towards that budget increase is huge. Specifically on the field, it's going to be tough to move up the SEC ladder this year, going through a coach transition year, coming off the number one defense, worst defense in America last year, according to my numbers. Just a brutal season. So, it's going to be a tough transition year, but I like the moves going forward. I think it was time for a change.
Yeah, well, at least Vanderbilt's got a quarterback they can build around. I know a lot of SEC teams probably envious that they don't have a Ken Seals on the roster. What do you think of that?
Yeah, for sure. He became just the third true freshman to start the season opener in the SEC since 1972. Broke a lot of Vanderbilt freshman records. He shined throughout the season at certain points, and yeah, for sure. I mean, bringing back an experienced quarterback is something to build around, for the new staff. But it's gonna be tough moving forward, though. Especially, it's gonna take a few cycles, I think, to install that defense. Derek Mason was a defensive guy himself. They're one of their best players, Ty Daly, departing for Virginia Tech. Donovan Kaufman transferred to Auburn, kind of following Mason there. So, it's going to be a tough transition, but seems like positive off the field and positive hire. So you can only go up.
Well, Cousin Shane, the real reason he's not on the show, Brett's got the Vols, number 6 in the SEC East. Oh, man. Cousin Shane may never speak to you again.
Well, with Cousin Shane, it's just a matter of the transfer portal. All that you've seen all that talent go day by day from the portal. It's got to be tough because these aren't just backups. These aren't just roster guys or young freshmen. These were your all-conference caliber players, potential All-Americans like Henry T. there at middle linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing these guys leave is just it's just crippling to the roster. And when you couple that with a big offensive scheme change, you're talking about going from the old traditional offense now towards this hyper-tempo UCF Josh Heupel offense. There's going to be a transition there. So in a tough division, with Alabama in the cross division, that's a tough draw and probably an automatic loss there. I think it's going to be tough to move up the SEC ladder.
Now, one of the games you've got as one of the best non-conference games in all of college football involving an SEC team, Pitt coming to Tennessee, week 2 of the season. Thoughts on Pitt, and what are the odds that the Vols are able to get that win early in the season, build some momentum in the first season of the Josh Heupel era?
Yeah, so with Pittsburgh, you're talking about a program that they've always had a strong defense the last couple of years under Pat Narduzzi. But the thing for them is they're replacing multiple All-Americans along their defensive line and then 2 All-ACC safeties with Hamlin and Ford leaving. So they're going to be early in the season definitely transitioning. That's a chance to grab a win there against Pitt. Offensively, we've seen Kenny Pickett as their starter now. This will be his 5th straight season as a starter. Everyone knows that name, even outside the SEC footprint. He's back with a rare 5th year as a starter. So we've kind of seen the ceiling there on offense. So, I think that's definitely a winnable game. I have them both in that top 40, top 50 range of my overall rankings. So it's definitely a winnable game for Tennessee. A couple things have to happen before then. You got to determine a quarterback. Of course, you've got a couple Power 5 starters coming in with Hendon Hooker, Virginia Tech, Joe Milton, Michigan, and then, of course, the incumbents, Bailey and Maher. So based on where that goes in preseason camp, that'll go a long way. And, And then just like I said at the top, just kind of filling in all these transfer gaps. I mean, the running backs are gone, some big offensive line names are gone, and Henry T there at linebacker. So, having guys step up and fill in those shoes is going to be real important off the, right away and early in the season.
All right, number 5 in the East. I think a little bit of a surprise here. The South Carolina Gamecocks. You just made a bunch of fans in Columbia there. Certainly sounds like you're buying into old Beamer ball down there.
Yeah, so this was really neck and neck for Tennessee and South Carolina for the 5th place there in the SEC East. I mean, I have Carolina 50th, I have Tennessee 52nd overall, so almost a tie there. They avoid Alabama, unlike Tennessee. But yeah, with the hire, I really like the hire. So this is a little bit off the grid. Nobody saw this name coming. He wasn't a former head coach. He wasn't a former coordinator. Not so much an SEC guy. I mean, he's coming from Oklahoma directly. But what I liked is his moves on offense, the way he's pairing his experience with Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley's offense with the LSU Joe Brady system that worked, bringing in Marcus Satterfield. So schematically, I think it's important that they're modernizing from that Muschamp offense that really just was stuck in the mud for the last 5 years. So I think schematically, it might not happen overnight, but it's certainly a strong move. Now, personnel-wise, I like their offensive line. I think that's a solid unit there. One of the best running back tandems in the conference. A top 100 recruit there, top 100 quarterback, Luke Doty. Sorry, with a dual threat, skill set. So a lot's going to change there on their offense after really a slow-moving unit recently. On defense, though, I do love them along the defensive line. A lot of edge rush potential. A couple 5-stars there with Pickens and Birch. The question will be how can they replace their secondary with a lot of those stars moving on, whether it be the NFL or transfer portal. So a lot to like. I think it's still labeled as a transition year. They're still going to be below average, but have them 5th up there.
Yeah, and that doesn't totally surprise me. I mean, I've been cautioning people that 5-1, 4-2, that type of start, not out of the realm of possibility for the Gamecocks going into year 1 of the Beamer era. The schedule, the back half is rough, but the first half of it, outside of that Georgia matchup, I mean, I think they have the ability to win just about every single game that first half, again, outside of that Georgia matchup. So would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, the schedule definitely sets up nicely there with the FCS opener. East Carolina, I know that you can't overlook them. They're punchy down there, but I think that's a 2-0 start. Probably lose to Georgia. Kentucky's definitely a swing game. I mean, that could go a long way for building confidence in this new coaching regime. Because if they're able to beat Kentucky, which I don't see happening, but let's just say they do, that's a 4-1 start heading into Neyland Stadium. Mm-hmm. Another swing game. You win that, you're going to beat Vanderbilt. You're talking 6-1 going into late October. I know there's a couple ifs in there, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. There, like I said, there is roster talent in certain areas. I love the run game. I love the offensive line, the defensive pass rush. So definitely doable. And it's going to be huge too because, like you saw from media days with Shane Meaver, getting high reviews from the media circles and fans alike. Perception's so important in this sport. So he already has the perception on his side. I can't imagine what a 6-1 or even a 5-2 start would do for perception. You'd probably have a ranking next to your name too, heading into that game at Kyle Field, October 23rd. So, yeah, we'll see. I like the move as a program. It might take a few years, but even this September they could get some wins.
All right, number 4 in the SEC East, you got the Missouri Tigers, who came out strong in the debut era, Eli Drinkowitz era. What do you got in store for the Tigers this year?
Yeah, so with Missouri and Kentucky, really it was a battle for third for me. And when I dug into it, and my numbers show this, I think Missouri was a little bit misleading of a record there at 5-5. When you look at their wins, their average margin of win compared to their average margin of victory. Sorry, your average margin of victory compared to average margin of loss. The losses were blowouts on average, and they barely scraped by some of these wins. So when you dig into it a little bit past just the record, I think they're a little bit misleading. There's some pieces to like. I like Connor Bazelak. I know he didn't grade too well in your SEC quarterback predictions, but he did have a nice accuracy percentage last year, completion rate. His quarterback rating was the second highest among the returning SEC quarterbacks for this year, and they added some great pieces at receiver that were lacking. But we'll see. I'm wondering too. A whole year of film on this new Drinkowitz offense for opposing SEC defensive coordinators. I wonder if they can make some improvements against it, because it is a lot of window dressing before the snap. It's pre-snap motions. It's variable formations, and I wonder if some of that beginner's luck might have worn off. We'll see. We'll see if it's lasting. But I have them fourth right now in the East.
Yeah, and they're a tough team to peg, man. I mean, they lost a number of guys in the transfer portal. They gained some good players like Mookie Cooper and Blaze Aldridge. Cooper from Ohio State, Aldridge from Rice. And then their secondary was looking like it would be a very big weakness. And then they land the pair of former Tulsa corners. So, throwing in that many new faces on a new system, new defensive coordinator, they're just a tough team for me to peg. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. And another thing that I didn't like in picking through the East was their defensive coordinator leaving. He's Ryan Walters is heading up to Illinois to join Brett Bielema's new staff up there. So you have a coordinator transition there on defense, and then we talked about some of the offensive struggles. We'll see if they're able to take a next step, or if the SEC coordinators catch up. I did like their transfer move of Mookie Cooper. He looked great in their spring showcase. You can't really call that one a game, but you could see the potential there from him. And like I said with Basilic, you at least know what you have. That's your floor, if you want to call it that. It's a high floor. So yeah, there's wins to be had. We'll get to them next, but I just like Kentucky's proven model as a program and their program identity. More predictable, and I like what they have there. So we'll get to them next.
Yeah, right there you got Yeah, right there, number 3 in the SEC East, the Kentucky Wildcats, and I even flirted with throwing them ahead of Florida, but with the uncertainty of what exactly you're getting in the new play caller, Liam Cohen, you don't have any idea what you're getting at the quarterback position. I couldn't justify putting them any higher than number 3. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so with Mark Stoops, he's really built a proven program, a proven program identity. It's a smash mouth team, a strong offensive line, a strong defense, and that's all coming back. And they even plugged in a few holes that they potentially could have had along the offensive line. They just signed Dare Rosenthal from LSU, a multi-year starter, an all-conference caliber guy. And that was late in the process. That was right before I hit publish. That was just a nice boost on top, because there's a couple other All-SEC and All-American candidates along their offensive line. With Darian Kennard and Luke Fortner both coming back. So pieces to like there on the offensive line. That's going to stay the same. I love Chris Rodriguez, their running back there. And even not just him, but Cavassier Smoke. That forms a nice two-man tandem. They're going to run the ball a ton again. But really, if they can get anything from their pass game, this starts to unlock them as a top 25 team. Because remember, in 2019, when the quarterbacks went down, they went just true wildcat with Bowden, and it was incredible. I've been very outspoken about his performance, how incredible that was. But you just got to have some passing to really. It's not sustainable. So in 2020, it happened again. One of the worst passing attacks in the country. So I think it's all it can only go up from there. They brought in an LA Rams coordinator. He's got ties to Sean McVay. I know everyone loves to hear that, but it just got to improve in their pass game. A couple Power 5 guys coming in, like Will Levis from Penn State. He was Sean Clifford's backup. Had some time against Ohio State in some random games. So I don't know. Overall, though, I love what their program identity, and they're a solid pick for third.
Now, I did want to ask you this about Kentucky, given the fact that, if you're looking just at their defensive depth chart, not a ton of returning starting experience, but maybe we give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, knowing that a lot of these players are in year 2, year 3, year 4 of the Mark Stoops system, and we all know what a great developer of talent he has been, and the recruiting has significantly taken a step up here in recent seasons. Do you just kind of give them the benefit of the doubt that even without a ton of starting experience returning on defense, that unit is going to be a strength of the team?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they lose both their defensive tackles there, Phil Hoskins and Quentin Bohanna. They were both huge. I mean, Bohanna literally, he was 350 pounds there at nose tackle, just a a huge space eater for them. So you lose some proven guys there. They got a boost with defensive end Josh Paschal deciding to return for a bonus season. He'll push for all conference honors, and you have DeAndre Square also, pretty much the team's defensive leader there. He started every game since that 2018 bowl game. So there's experience at the linebackers, off the edge. So there's enough to like, and like you hinted at and what I've said, their staff has really proven that they can develop players, they can recruit to their schemes. That recruiting profile has risen. Top 25 class, I think it was one of their first ever, was in 2020. Those guys are now entering their, I guess would be their second years on campus. So they're going to get a nice talent boost from the young guys, as well as some veterans that are now stepping into starting spots. So I'm pretty confident with what their staff has done. Mike White has proven himself as a defensive coordinator and has done more with less talent. I say less in quotes, just according to recruiting rankings, less than some of the other counterparts in the division. So, a ton of respect for the staff.
All right, number 2 in the East, you got the Florida Gators. And looking at your game grader, Florida's offense rated out 93%, one of the highest in the country. And then you flip over to the defense, only 27. Horrible year there for Todd Grantham's unit. I don't know how you talk about the Florida Gators without just kind of pinpointing the focus on that defense. Do you think that they turn it around on that side of the ball this season?
Yeah, so that's a great point. It's one of those moments where I love when the numbers actually make sense with what you watch on film, because that's a perfect example. I mean, we all watched Florida last year. Their offense was unstoppable, at least their passing attack, unstoppable, with Kyle Trask, a Heisman candidate, Kadarius Toney, just a total X factor, Pitts, the big frame over the middle. So yeah, there was an unstoppable offense. Defensively, they couldn't stop anybody, and this was kind of a shock to me. Of course, a year ago, in last year's season preview book, I went against the grain. I had Florida to win the SEC East. Everyone else had Georgia. A lot of people had Georgia. So that was a nice win. Although I took it one step too far, I actually had them winning the SEC. I knew that offense would be legit and one of the best in the country, but I thought the defense would be their usual top 20, top 15 stature, and they fell apart. So I whiffed on half of it. But for what it's worth with Todd Grantham, he has a strong track record of turning out pro players, turning out all SEC guys, and building attacking aggressive defenses. So I think he's earned himself a mulligan. We'll see how 2021 goes, because there's a ton of talent there. 5 stars galore, especially along the defensive line and the linebacker stable. Returning starters in the secondary. There's a lot to like. I think that they get back to their normal roots. The bigger question mark will be how they reload on offense, and there's definitely going to be a step back. That's just obvious given the loss of Trask and Toney and Pitts. So, but if anyone's a proven quarterback guru, I think we can give Dan Mullen credit, and it's not just from Trask, but you're talking about his time at Mississippi State with Dak Prescott, his previous stop in Gainesville when he was rotating Chris Leak and Tebow, even back to 2004 at Utah, how he helped develop Alex Smith, the future number 1 overall pick there on the undefeated team in 04. So, yeah, I mean, he's got a track record there and a couple prospects there. Emory Jones, I think, starts the season. We'll see. There's a lot to work with, though.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things about Dan Mullen, I mean, he gets all this credit for being a quarterback developer, and he deserves all that. But in my mind, the thing he does best is just adapt his personnel, adapt his system to the strengths of those players, in particular the quarterback. I think with what Florida's got returning, I would not be surprised at all if they're one of the best rushing teams in the SEC next season. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a good point, because when you think back to most of his offenses, they were quarterback run heavy. I mean, think of Dak Prescott. Even after him, Nick Fitzgerald shouldered a ton of carries per game, put up over 1,000 yards rushing. So it's almost like the Trask team, the Trask offense was really his outlier. That was a rare pivot to pass first and pass second and pass heavy. So he's going to go back to his roots here. He's going to give Emory Jones more carries. I mean, even last year, Jones was in there for about 5 carries a game in some packages, some wildcat packages. But in a normal offense, he's going to get his 10 to 15 carries a game. And you know what? They have talent there at running back. These are former 5-star guys that transferred in. Lorenzo Lingard from Miami, 5-star, and DeMarcus Bowman from Clemson is a 5-star. So if this offensive line can take a step forward, that might have been holding him back a little bit. But if these running backs start to get loose, it could be a great offense and return to a strong run game.
All right, the Beast of the East. This year you got the Georgia Bulldogs winning the East, returning to Atlanta. And not only that, you've got the Bulldogs going all the way to the college football playoff. Tell us why you're so high on Georgia.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it's all there this year, and there's a window of opportunity that they really need to execute on. And I see that Kirby Smart and Georgia get ripped to shreds on Twitter and online about how they underperform. I don't buy that. I mean, you're looking at a program that's a consistent top 5 or top 6 team. They've made playoffs. They've made national title games. They made SEC title games. So I'm not going to sit here and say they underperform. But what I will say is that this is college football is all about timing, and there's a window here they got to execute because Florida's going through a massive transition there on offense, and then Alabama, we'll get to them later in the show, but they're going through a big roster overhaul as well. I think the avenue is there for them to drive into Atlanta and steal the SEC this year and make a playoff push. And real quick, why I love them so much this year, first it's the recruiting. You always start there. They have the number 1 overall 5-year average and the number 1 3-year average. They've gone toe-to-toe with Alabama. They're right there with them roster-wise. The defense is always top 5, top 10. There's just so many guys coming back, all-American caliber players, the linebackers. They even plugged a couple holes in their secondary via the transfer portal, bringing in an All-American from West Virginia, Tyke Smith, and a contributor from Clemson at corner. So, but then really what brings them from an 8 or 9 win team on defense alone to a playoff contender and playoff team is their offense taking a huge step. And, I think that a lot of college football fans saw them early in the year and saw how they were still stuck in the 1980s offensively and got tagged with a couple losses and turned them off. But, those last 5 games or 4 games with JT Daniels in there, you started to see that Todd Monken offense, that vertical passing, that modernized offense really come to life. And it was unstoppable. I know that they played some weaker teams, but even when you adjust for opponent, they were very strong after that bye week and after Daniels took over. So I see all of that coming back. I see a 5-star arm with Daniels. I see 5 stars at receiver. They always have a top offensive line, and it could be the best running back core out there with Zamir White and a host of 5 stars behind him. So I think it all comes together. I think the platform is there for them to make it to the SEC title game and win it this time around.
And how excited are you for this season opener in Charlotte, Georgia, and Clemson? This is the game of the year, they're saying already. I just did a podcast with a bunch of Clemson homers, and they were saying they got, the next great quarterback. They got 4 first-round picks on the defensive line. How do you think the Tigers match up with the Georgia Bulldogs?
Yeah, this game pick was pretty much foundational for my overall national picks. We'll get to that in my playoff picks, but with Georgia making the playoff, I was pretty much saying they're going to beat Clemson here in the opener. The position group I really like is Georgia's front 7 against Clemson's offensive line. Their offensive line struggled last year, and before 2020, those few years when they were making national titles and playoffs, their offensive line and their run game were number one in the nation in yards per carry and run push. So they were incredible until last year. They took a major step back. I think they finished about 70th nationally, middle of the pack. They're not getting their push they used to. And when you look at this Georgia front 7 with so many guys, I know they lose Aguilari there, but with Anderson back, Nakobe Dean in the middle, Quay Walker, and then up front, so many guys. Tyler Davis, defensive tackle there, could push for All-American honors. So, anyways, I love their front 7 against Clemson's O-line. I know that he started a couple games as quarterback, DJU, but still a relatively new starter with a new running back stable. And I really like Georgia in this matchup, and it's kind of going to set the tone for my 2021 preview.